They called it Project Rainbow, a Navy experiment meant to make a ship invisible to radar. An experiment gone awry, with sailors fused into the steel and a ship that disappeared and showed up in an entirely different state moments later. What actually happened that dreadful night in 1943? Let's find out. This is Origin Unexplained, where the weird gets weirder and the abnormal is our norm. And I'm Sue, and this is Origin Unexplained. Are you ready to jump into another time zone? Fasten your seatbelts as we go for a ride back to 1943 to relive an experiment the Navy claims never happened. The Philadelphia experiment. So, this story made its way into society after a book called The Case for the UFO has it that a sailor by the name of Carl Allen witnessed a ship disappear, and when it reappeared, the men that weren't killed were infused into the bulk of the ship itself. In other words, into the metal. I'll explain more, but let me step back to give you the details. So, author Morris K. Jessup had written a book in 1955 called The Case for the UFO. And it explored topics like ancient monuments, unexplained aerial phenomena, advanced propulsion, and the possibility of extraterrestrial intervention. You heard that right. You can actually find this book today in Audible, and I actually have it myself. It's pretty good so far, actually, considering the time, date, and stuff for books back then. Jessup intended to treat the UFO phenomenon semi-seriously, yet semi-scientific. So the book was printed by Citadel Press in New York in 1955. A man by the name of Carlos Allende, also known as Carl Allen, wrote to Jessup in 1955. He used the name Carlos Miguel Allende, which was like a pseudonym. Right there is a little weird. His true name was Carl Meredith Allen. He sent him 3 handwritten letters after reading his book, The Case for the UFO Unidentified Flying Objects. He mentioned Einstein's unified field theory, magnetic fields, and sailors being fused into the steel bulk of the ship. And over the years, it's been said that in 1943, a military experiment was going on to make ships invisible to radar, which actually was an early form of our stealth technology. Pretty interesting. In Carl's story to Jessup, he claimed during evening hours he himself was aboard the USS Andrew Fearensev, and it was docked in the Philadelphia Naval Yard. While on the ship, he and others witnessed the ship, the USS Eldridge, DE-173. And DE means destroyer escort, for those that do not know. It supposedly materialized in front of them and actually dematerialized, meaning it was there and then it disappeared. This was done through Einstein's unified field theory by unifying gravity and electromagnetism, and of course, with none other than Tesla's electromagnetic generators. Right there, guys. Right? You've got Tesla and you've got Einstein. What not a better way to have an experiment? So Carl claimed the ship was enveloped in a greenish bluish fog that appeared to glow. The ship then disappeared from radar. The claim was not only disappearing from radar, but it literally disappeared from Philadelphia and appeared in Norfolk, Virginia. Yes, for about 18 minutes, then returning to Philadelphia. Now, there's a story, right? Not good for bedtime stories for the kids. Where exactly? It's actually questionable. As some say it was at the Norfolk Naval Shipyard, and of course, you got to have something contradicting, while others say at the naval station in Norfolk for that entire 18-minute stretch. So, upon returning to Philadelphia, Carl claimed that crew members suffered nausea, some had mental breakdowns, some were fused into the ship walls, which obviously, if half your body was in metal and half of it was sticking out, you're not going to last very long. While others simply vanished or became invisible with some weird time space distortion around them. Can you imagine? The so called after effects claimed that survivors suffered madness, and who wouldn't, and some permanently injured, obviously. And lore has it that memory suppression happened and that secrecy and cover ups are part of the story. Well, if you think about it, that makes complete, total sense. You would not want that exposed to any sort of family members or anything due to lawsuits. But let's keep going here. Carl claimed to have spoken to some of the men that were actually on the Eldridge, or who knows? I mean, maybe he just overheard it. You know how people are. And that is probably how he came about to coming to the conclusion that the ship ended up in Virginia at Norfolk. So before we go into details and more lore, let's go back to the beginning. And then we'll have a panel on here to help us discuss their thoughts and ideas on the whole thing. So let's go back to the beginning about the books and where it all started to finish that. So after Carl Allen sent the letters to Morris K. Jessup, it's said by some that he returned his book to Jessup with underlining and annotations between the lines. Some stories claim he never sent a copy to Jessup. So that would mean he would have to have, what, 2 copies? Which isn't unusual, but here nor there. Other stories claim he sent the copy of the book with annotations to the ONR. Again, ONR means Office of Naval Research, and that happened in 1956. He wrote in 3 distinct colors in his annotations, and they were blue, blue violet, and red. Color for each person, and that is a color for Mr. A, Mr. B, and Jemmy, claiming there were 3 people that were alien or extra dimensional beings. Yes, you heard that right. Alien or extra dimensional beings. It described complete invisibility, teleportation, and field resonance. The annotations also mention stasis fields, which are time loops and the crew being stuck in place. It described frozen motion and being locked between dimensions and phased, and I'm going to say, quote, phased beings. That is about the men being infused in the hull of the ship. It also talks of alien technology and great ships, referred to as motherships, and hostile observers. So now you've got the strange story. And the tone suggested non-human observers watching scientists rediscover lost knowledge. A lot of the notes obsessed over the unified field theory, which Einstein technically, supposedly, never completed. Or so, quote, they say. Yeah. It suggested the Navy had taken the work and it was possibly hidden. It basically links a core conspiracy that the government was weaponizing the manipulation of time and space. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You don't disappear without dealing with that, right? In the annotations, it constantly mocks science, calling it childish and naive and dangerously curious. There is a tone of superior beings warning humanity of toying with it. Now, right there makes me wonder, but we won't get into my speculations until we have the panel here. So, with all this information, it is said that the government created the book, the Vero edition. It came from Vero Manufacturing Company in Garland, Texas in 1957. A private defense contractor for the U.S. Navy in the 50s was who that was. So it was an in-house print. It was like a print run, not intended for public distribution. However, I would think that they probably would maybe send this to maybe ufologists, who knows? Was it given to ufologists? Who knows? It said Jessup's work was speculative. Basically, his book was hijacked and turned into a coded transmission full of the Philadelphia experiment references and other things such as alien propulsion, tech, and metaphysical riddles, I guess. Long story short, on April 20th, 1959, in Dade County, Florida, Morris K. Jessup's body was found dead in his car. Yeah. The car was parked in Matheson Hammock Park in a public area in Coral Gables, just outside of Miami. He had apparently hooked up a hose from the exhaust pipe and ran it into the car window. So for now, I am going to leave you with that. And at the time, he was working on a new book. Yet, it was claimed he was broke and ostracized from mainstream science. All right. Well, now we have the panel here. We have Gal and Rod here, and I want to know what you guys' opinions are of this. What do you think? Do you think that the story's true?
Yes.
I do.
So I'm just going to throw some things out there. I got a different idea on the whole aspect. So one thing I didn't mention earlier in the video was that was a restaurant or a bar room. They haven't figured out exactly what it is. And apparently men just appeared in the room, and this lady went berserk, one that worked there. Like, here these guys appear and then they fade out. And I mean, there was that 15 or 18-minute gap there. I don't know what to make of that.
Yeah, where did they go during that 18 minutes?
Yeah, it seems like, though, if you had 18 minutes, you wouldn't have time to get off the ship and find a restaurant. However, the men that did not reappear, they were lost in limbo. They may have been able to go to restaurants because they're living in this freaky time zone.
What a theory there. Wow.
Well, it kind of
Right?
matches up with the first movie that they did on it, but still they question whether that actually, was a true story. But somewheres there was a documented part in a newspaper, and they called the lady a blonde bimbo or something. That's not my wording, guys, just to let you know that was back in the day. Here's my question. How did Carl know so much information if he was not on the Eldridge himself?
It would be impossible.
Right?
Yep.
Now I know they said that he talked to the men, which here we fall into another question, whether he overheard them or talked to the men that were on the ship, because according to documents, the Ferensath was here, the ship was here, so they could see it from where they were docked. But if you went through all that, how are you going to even be able to talk if you're disoriented?
That is a good question.
Thirdly, how does it just land at a naval base? Just happens to land at some base in Virginia. How come it didn't land in the middle of the Atlantic somewhere or the Pacific? Or
Right. Wow.
that to me is odd.
Well, it's a fascinating part of history. It was covered up. I'm surprised they ever made a movie on it.
And
And the movie,
multiple ones at that.
yeah,
Right?
but
Yeah.
the original movie, yeah, sure.
That one, that one I liked. The other ones I did not like, 2, 3. So, according to naval records, the ship was docked in Florida at the time on October 28th of 43.
Mm,
If it's being covered up,
right.
there's another story all on its own. If you sent a book to the Office of Naval Research, basically having all that stuff in there, would they not arrest you? Or would you
Nowadays,
not come up missing?
nowadays, you wouldn't be seen again.
No.
That doesn't resonate with me either.
That would fall under Homeland Security nowadays, and they can just
Yeah.
lock you away.
Then I want to say, is he the one that created the story so the government could create the Vero edition, the second book, to shut down Jessup's book to the ufologists? This is my thought. I think now that things were concocted to shut Jessup up because he was too close to stuff with the UFO community that might have, I don't know, given away secrets that they did not want given away, because we all know in the 50s everything was about UFOs. But that's just my opinion. It's a great story, and I would like to say yes that it happened, but it really sounds. Why would they make a book the Vero edition?
That's a good question on that.
They took his book and literally changed it up.
Mhm.
Well, if you're talking about extraterrestrials being involved, you've got Einstein in there, you've got Tesla in there for theories. And if there are any type of, or was any type of involvement with alien type extraterrestrials, then of course they're going to cover that up. They
Yeah.
still do today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many years later?
Yep.
I mean, you're talking 70 years later. 70
Yes.
years later. Yeah,
Yes.
that was, yeah, 55, right, Rod? I don't
Mhm.
know. What do you think, Rod? What's your opinion on the whole thing?
I think it's real. I always have thought it was real. I know how the government covers things up.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's a scrambled bunch of facts that some of them really apply to show that it is real. But like you said, with the cover up stuff, aliens being involved, yeah, God knows. I know it was real though. Will we ever get the truth? No.
What do you think, Gail?
I think it's a cover up as well. A big cover up. I mean, that's a lot of info out there, especially for back then.
Yeah.
And imagine what it's actually really done, and even through the years from there to this point,
Oh, God, yeah.
especially if they've kept it covered up all this time.
Yeah. Well,
The family,
there definitely, I think, was a cover up. I do not think for one moment that a person that is writing another book is going to take in the middle of a park where kids are. Now, this guy, Jessup, was also in the Navy, just to let everybody know.
Hmm.
He was also in the Navy. So back in the early 1900s, I don't foresee anybody wanting to run anything into their car in the middle of a park where it's
No.
busy. No. That's a personal thing.
Yeah.
Garage, doors shut.
yes. Yep. That stinks to high heaven right there, as they say.
I
Right.
think very possible that he was done away with and then placed in the car. So either way, I believe that he was meant to be shut up.
Yeah, I believe that too.
So,
And here's a thought that came to me with all the family members and everything of the service members that were aboard that ship. Some family member, at least a couple, had to know something. What did they say about their missing loved ones? What did the response come back to them from
see,
top officials?
Yeah.
that's where things get weird. Nobody's ever come forward that they've had missing people that were on it. The men that were on the ship claim that nothing like that ever happened.
Huh.
And
Well,
good old Carl Allen later on down through the years said that it was a created story.
and they could have been made to have kept quiet,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And it's easy. Do you love
Yes.
your family members? Do you love this? Do you love your dogs? You know how that goes.
Do you
And you
love your
shut up.
life?
Yes. So you shut up. Yeah. Still going on
Yeah.
today. I think it did some fascinating research. I
Yeah.
think it's awesome.
That was
Kudos to you for all that work.
thank you. I ran into a lot of stuff about the Montauk Project, which was added to a lot of things have been added to the Philadelphia experiment story as time went on. I know Al Bielek, who's now gone, Preston Nichols, who's now gone, Duncan Cameron's still alive. They were the
Mm.
ones that created books through Peter Moon's book place down in Long Island. And they had some great stories. And Preston was an electrical person and rather intelligent, but he never allowed people to talk about stuff. So, according to those theories, ship actually was tested out on July 22nd. And of course, then the Philadelphia experiment happened on the 28th of October, 43, we're going back to. And that it supposedly bounced all over the place, ended up somehow, I don't know. I don't want to say that because I don't know for sure, but Al Bielek tried to say that they did a transmigration of his soul because he wouldn't have been old enough at the time to have been involved in it. And he said that his soul was taken out of him and put into the body of another individual. It it just got so far fetched. Do I believe that there was stuff like the Montauk Boys down in underground base on Long Island? Very possible.
Oh yeah.
Is there electric cables that run into the ground that are new telephone lines back in the day and stuff? Yep. Has a radar tower moved over time? Yep. But outside of their story sounding so outlandish, there was a picture of Al Bielek that he claimed was his picture when he was younger, when he was in high school, as another person whose soul was taken from his body and moved into another one. They claim that
Now that
picture.
is fascinating.
That is.
And that
Well,
would be like more of an alien type thing or extraterrestrial
yeah,
Yeah.
there's a whole
technology.
slew of books on that. But
Wow.
I'll bet.
their family of the guy had come forward and said no. So there was quite a few years that I had believed a lot of that stuff, and now I'm like, mm-mm. Preston Nichols, however, back in the day was pretty fascinating. I mean, he brought about a lot of things, talked about Plum Island, lots of different things that made a lot of sense, and somehow it's like Al Bielek and this Duncan guy. All of a sudden, Al Bielek claims that his body's in this other guy, and he's the brother to Duncan Cameron, and they're from total different areas in the United States. One in Southern Drawl, the other one didn't. One was from Long Island. Too much chaos, and a lot of people want to believe those stories because they were so good, but yet they just didn't match up.
Hmm.
I do not believe in the Montauk story at all. Not to mention the fact that they created a Montauk monster that
Oh yeah.
supposedly only in their stories that was like an invisible black thing that nobody's ever seen except them.
Hmm.
And whenever I guess Preston would do talks and stuff, he would shut people down quick. No questions, no nothing. Didn't want to get involved. Wouldn't allow people to say anything. So I don't know. You guys both believe the Philadelphia experiment happened, and I want to believe it. But after all these years, I think it was a thing to shut up the whole UFO thing. And I think the Vero edition was made, even though it wasn't meant to go public. It didn't have, the number to go public or anything. I think that stuff got sent to not only military people, but to the ufologists and stuff that were searching things to make Jessup look like crap.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I would be
I-
curious how many of you guys out there, if you're on YouTube watching this, go down in the comment section, believe or not believe. Or if you're watching this from a social media platform or something, go in the comment section. What do you believe? It's a really interesting story. Time travel being my number one thing that I absolutely love. This is a freaking great story.
Yeah.
Same here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I'm
Well, that
fascinated in it too.
oh, it is great stories.
Hmm.
If you guys end up getting a more recent version of, if say you just feel like reading about it, Charles Berlitz and William Moore wrote a book in '79. But I'll tell you right now, it's hard reading. It's very scientific.
Mm.
So, and that was the one guy that I showed you a picture of from the papers that I had was from William Moore when he was alive. Yes, I
Hmm.
have papers. Al Bielek and William Moore and all those people that dealt in this stuff. And 98% of them are gone now. Might be sitting on a gold mine. Who knows?
I know, you never know.
Right.
We're all personal messages to you and written out
Yes.
things and
Yes.
contact
On
me
paper.
back. And yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I did. I was told I could buy all these boxes of information on it and stuff like that. And I'm like, it's a little sketchy, but any rate, thank you guys for coming on.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a good
And
show.
thank you. And for all of you that are out there listening, like I said, go down in the comment section. I mean, if you're listening on Spotify, you can't do it, but you can always find us on TikTok or Facebook, X, social media platforms. Let us know what you think. All right. That's Gail, obviously. That's Ron, and I'm Sue from Origin Unexplained,
Hello.
and we'll be back soon with some more. Thanks so much for watching.